Hello and welcome everyone, this is Calebovitsch coming to you with another episode of Jekk check. Yes, that's right, today's episode is a Jekk check, not a deck check, because Jekk, Mercenary Hunter, is a unit that has been running rampant throughout both Throne and Expedition, well, since he was released in Shadow of the Spire. And he has such a huge impact on the metagame, but I'm not gonna get into that, but just let me say that Jekk is going to be included in the deck, and he is going to be riding a unicorn dragon thingy. But that's not the end of it. This is my take on a Worldshaper staff deck. We are not getting any Beyonders, don't know why, don't know where, but at least we're getting a Prismatic Golem for our troubles, and all kinds of influence. So get ready for Monofire, 5-faction, Jekk's Unicorn Ride. I would like to reiterate, this deck is including Jekk's. It could be also turned into a Jekk tribal deck if you switch some cards around a bit, but that's not the main idea behind this deck. The main idea is the card Worldshaper's Staff. This is a 3-cost weapon, a neutral one, from the newest mini expansion Shadow of the Spire. It gives you the unit you play it on +1/+1 and has 2 effects. A, when the wielder dies, draw a card and gain 1 influence of each color. And B, on summon you get to play a 7/7 Prism Golem that has -2/2 for each type of influence you have. Now, given that this card is a dual mode, where one mode kind of contradicts the other, because, well, you're getting a Prism Golem. If you're playing a no-faction deck, you're getting a 7/7 unit. If you're playing a mono-faction deck, you're getting a 5/5 unit. If you're running 2 factions, you're getting a 3/3 unit alongside with it. But when the wielder dies, usually Prism Golem dies alongside with it, unless you, for example, silence it or do something to counteract those negative stats that it's acquiring. So there are 2 ways of building your deck around Worldshaper Staff. I mean, one is rather including Worldshaper Staff in a deck, the other one is building a deck around it. And this is going to be the second case here. Because if you're just including this in a deck, you usually want to put it in a mono-faction deck, like, I don't know, Mono Justice or something like that. And you just put it on a unit, you get a 5/5 for your troubles, and you just hope that your unit that you played it on doesn't die for the longest of times. For example, well, I said Mono Justice because I heard of an example where you're playing just a Mono Justice deck with a ton of units that have Aegis, and you put it on a unit with Aegis so that the Golem is more likely to survive, and that's about it. But that is just a way to include this in mono-faction decks, such as, for example, Seal of Devotion or Veteran Mercenary, or whatever that card was called. The other way, and that's the way I wanted to do things here, is to build your deck around this card and building it around the first ability, or rather the second half of the first ability of this card, and that is gain Fire, Time, Justice, Primal, and Shadow. So, what I wanted to do for the longest of times, and finally got to do it a couple of days ago on stream, is make a deck in which you can get this card into your hand reliably. You can put it on a unit rather cheaply because, well, you want to do it as fast as possible to enable the rest of your deck. And you have to have some ways of killing that unit off for you to gain all that influence. And I started this journey by getting the first, by looking at the first stipulation. You have to be able to play this card reliably, and this is a weapon, and Fire has all the tools of grabbing your weapons from your deck or from your void, and that is what I went with. Also, the base of this deck is mono Fire, so usually when you're playing the Worldshaper Staff out, you are getting a 5/5 Prism Golem. So early you are trying to block as much as possible, but later you're turning into a 5-faction deck with all the goodies available at your fingertips. Word of caution though, although it is rather, well, I wouldn't say easy, I would rather say not complicated, getting the first activation on Worldshaper Staff and getting one of each influence, getting a second activation by either searching for a second copy or copying it or grabbing it from the void and replaying it is a bit of a more of a hassle, and that is why the cards in this deck that are not just mono fire, like the power base you can see here, 21 fire sigils and 4 granite waystones. The cards that are not mono fire in this deck have only a single faction requirement from all around the factions all around the world. But those cards, those multi-faction cards that you see here, are the payoff. Also, a cool payoff of playing such a deck is, as you can see in the upper right corner, all the factions are fully colored because you have at least 10 cards of each color in your deck, which means this is very good. This is a very good deck for doing all your quests, that is for sure. Like winning with a fire deck or winning with a time deck or anything like that. And also this gives you XP for your faction progression from level 1 to level 100. I don't know on what scale, but at least it does provide you with some XP there for all the factions. Anyway, so let me guide you through the process that this crazy mind had when I was developing this deck. So, okay, Worldshaper staff, easy peasy. Also 25 power, 50 other cards. Okay, let's start at that. We have 4 copies of Worldshaper staff, and we have to grab it and we have to play it on a unit. So the way to grab it is, well, first of all, playing 4 copies. Second of all, playing 4 copies of Dragonforge, the 3-cost fire fast spell that says draw a dragon or weapon of your choice from your deck and reduce its cost by 1. So you're playing this on turn 3, and on turn 4 you can play a 1 or a 2-cost unit and play Worldshaper staff on it. And that can, for example, be a Grenadin from Granite Waystone, etc., etc. Okay, so that is what you're doing for sure. Another way you could be doing it slightly faster is if, for example, in this deck you also included Tota Pioneers, which I haven't, because this is just a work in progress. This is just my first semi-working iteration of this deck, and you can for sure improve on it if you're willing and or crazy enough to do it. And I believe I see the first victim that is going to get cut right now, Research Assistant for Tota Pioneer, but that is just, I'm thinking of that right now. And I already have my games pre-recorded, so I'm not going to change it at this moment anyway. Okay, that was a lengthy monologue, but okay, we are getting Worldshaper staff. Now we have to play it on a cheap unit. So we have those cheap Grenadins from Granite Waystone, and you only have Fire Influence in your deck, at least as your main power base goes. So we were just so you can just play the Grenadin on turn 4 if you play Granite Waystone on turn 4, and well, then you can go for putting Worldshaper staff on it. Also, I have not included Seals of Devotion in this deck because we are also running Jekk Mercenary Hunter, which wants and needs a lot of fire. We are running, well, we want to run that Granite Waystone, and after you proc Worldshaper staff and you get 1 influence of each faction, then Seal of Devotion no longer warps from the top of your deck, so it's like immaterial. Alright, so that's that. We also have 12 cheap units, 1-cost units, and as you can see, the curve of this deck is some 1s, a lot of 3s, and payoff. This is called payoff here. So we have 4 copies of Grenadin Drone, a 1-cost fire 1/1 Grenadin that summons another 1/1 Grenadin. This is for you also to survive the early game against aggro X1 or X2 units. You have 4 copies of Research Assistant, the 1-copy fire Grenadin. That's a 1/1, and that says pay 2 and sacrifice Research Assistant to get +3 power this turn. And on summon, it gives you either time or primal influence. And while the last ability here kind of contradicts you getting a huge Prism Golem early out of Worldshaper staff, this also is an option for you to self-sacrifice to proc Worldshaper staff and also to ramp up a bit. And last but certainly not least, we have 4 copies of Kindling Carver, another 1-cost Ingu 1/1. This time it's a Totemite, not a Grenadin. And this card says exhaust and sacrifice another unit to draw a card and reduce its cost by 1 this turn. At the end of your turn, discard it. And by it, they mean the card that you just have drawn. Okay, so you have a ton of cheap units. And here you can see both the units that you can put the Worldshaper stuff on, and some ways for you to get rid of those units, like just sacrifice that unit with Kindling Carver, or sacrifice Research Assistant himself, and you're gonna draw a card, right? So this is not totally reliable, but remember you have 2 redraws, and you want to redraw to either Dragonforge or Worldshaper staff, and you're usually getting a cheap unit. And, well, getting a forge or a staff and some power is much more important than getting a lot of cheap units. Also, you're using Kindling Carver like crazy in the early game, to just draw and draw and draw cards. Because, well, that is how you... what you need to be doing as early as possible. Even if you're just playing, let's say, Granite and Drone on turn 1 and Kindling Carver on turn 2, I would use the Carver to get rid of one of those drones, but because maybe you're going to draw power or another Research Assistant or something like that. So I would start using Carver in this deck as early as possible, that is for sure. Another way of killing your unit is just playing Torch on it, because, well, you can deal damage to your own unit or to yourself. So there is that. And last but not least, we have Jekk, Mercenary Hunter, 4 copies of him. He is right now getting settled to go on a unicorn ride, but what he does not know is that the unicorn in question is actually a huge dragon. And this is a 3-cost triple fire 2/3 gunslinger that everyone says is OP, and he is. When he hits the enemy player, you get to create and draw a treasure trove, which is just a 2-costing spell that draws you a card. And on summon, you may pay 1 and discard a card to deal 2 damage to 2 enemies. Could be units, could be sites, could be the enemy player. And Jekk gets double damage if it's a sigil, and it's usually a sigil if you're discarding excess power. You can also discard the card that you're getting off of Carver, for example. So, well, you're using it at least. And this is another way for you to stay healthy in the early game, because against aggressive decks, you're just taking away 2 of their cards. Against control decks, you're getting your treasure trove, killing 1 thing, dealing some damage to the opponent, and you have a threat on the board. So that is the fire part of the deck. Now, let's say you have your early game covered because you have some cheap units to clog the ground. You have some torches and jacks to get rid of some cheap aggressive units. What can you do then? And 2 things were suggested to me, or one was suggested to make it into a display tribal, and the other one being, well, it can also be a dragon tribal. Because when it comes to displays, each display, all 10 displays, each of the 10 displays costs costs 3 and has an influence requirement of 1 from 3 different factions, and has 3 different modes, usually most of them good. In this version, I'm playing 2 copies of 5 of the displays, but as I said, this is still kind of work in progress. The Unicorn Ride has not ended yet, and you can just pick and choose which displays you like the best. You can go for 1 of each of the 10, but I went with just 2 copies of 5 of these because of the reasons that I'm going to tell you right now, or rather in a moment. Because we're going to get to the second half of payoff, and that is dragons. And what best dragon to grab with your Dragon Forge? Well, then Nyxotraxian, right? I mean, it's a 7 cost unless you grab it with with Dragon Forge. Then it's a 6 cost. 1 of each influence, but we got it covered. It's an 8/8 flyer. And on Fate, it creates and draws you a random card. Well, what can be better than that if you're playing a crazy deck like this, right? I mean, this is the memeiest of the memes. You could also be playing, I don't know, like 4 Joes in this deck. Sorry, Zoes. That create and draw your treasure trove when you're drawing them off of Fate. But isn't it better to just get some random cards and win like that? But Nyxotraxian cannot be the only win condition, because right now Turn to Seed is running amok, and if someone just turns to Seed Nyxotraxian, turns to Seed Jekk, you don't have anything to win with. So honestly, another Jekk came into mind. Jekk the Bounty Hunter. This is a 6 cost fire justice, so it doesn't need a lot of influence requirements, but it is doing his work for sure. It is a 6/4 quick draw gunslinger. On summon, you get to silence and stun an enemy unit, which is awesome and amazing, and you're gonna see it in one of the games for sure. You could also include 2 other copies of Jekk here, probably. I mean, Jekk Hunted Fugitive is just mono fire, so it is easy to be played in this deck. A 7/5 quick draw that grows and grows, and all your attacking units grow and grow and grow. Just keeps playing those sidearms on it. I don't know. I mean, usually there is an infinite amount of knives on a warrior. Here it's an infinite amount of sidearms, so these are just one shot, two of them, two one-shots, etc., etc. There's also the coolest of the Jekks, Jekk Lone Gun. Unfortunately, this one has a double shadow requirement, so unless you're changing the main base of this deck from fire to Stone Scar, then you're gonna be you want to be running Jekk Lone Guns as well. And this is a 7/7 deadly that says when a unit goes to the enemy void, it gets void bound. On tribute, you get to kill an enemy unit, and on infiltrate, you get to create and draw bad news, and you get to attack again and again and again. So you could turn this into a full Jekk tribal. So far, it only has mercenary and bounty hunters. Aside from those, there were some free slots in the deck that I wanted to fill with some cards. And what other cool dragon? I keep forgetting this is a dragon. I mean, for me, it always has looked like a bat or a vampire or something like that. And I keep forgetting it's a dragon, but it is indeed a dragon, and you can grab it with Dragon Forge. And it is a 6-cost primal Shadow 4/5 flying lifesteal dragon that on summon deals 1 damage to each enemy, including sides and the enemy player, which is very cool. And we also have here 2 copies of Den of Ordeals. I mean, if we're diving headfirst into dragons, this is the scariest of the sides because of Nakova and Molot. The 8/8 flying Aegis Berserk flying dragon that on summon deals 4 damage to each enemy. This can't be stopped by Aegis, and enemies killed this turn get void bound. Also, you get to play the end is near and get rid of the top 10 power cards from your deck, kill something, etc., etc. So this is just cool, and once again cool. Now we are only left with the displays here. Displays of Ambition, you get to grow your units and give them Overwhelm, or draw 2 units from your void and take some damage, or kill a huge and healthy enemy unit. And if you're grabbing Nyctotraxians, for example, from your void, Fate gets triggered because, display says draw, and the Fate says when drawn. So you're getting 2 Nyctotraxians and 2 other random cards, so that is cool. Displays of Destruction, you either get to deal 3 damage to some enemy units and gain health, or you can sacrifice a unit to power up and play Nyctotraxian or Jekk the Bounty Hunter that much faster. Or you get to play 3/1/1 Cultists Exhausted, and this mode has proven very good if you have Carver in play, because this allows you to draw a card in 3 turns. Next up we have Displays of Instinct, which deal 4 damage to an enemy, or put 1 of your units into your hand and you gain some health, or you get to negate an enemy spell. Then we have Displays of Menace, which deal 1 damage to each enemy, or kill an enemy relic, and give relics in the enemy void bound, which could be cool. Or you get to sacrifice a unit, for example one with Worldshaper staff on it, and you get to draw 2 of the top 4 cards of your deck. Bottom the rest. That's cool wording. Bottom the rest. And last but not least, 2 copies of Display of Tradition. You can put an enemy unit back to its owner's hand and do nothing because you're not running relics here, unless you get one from Nyctotraxian. You get to give 1 of your units +2 health and killer, or you get to silence the enemy void and draw a card. So this kind of works against some reanimator strategies midway through, etc., etc. But honestly, you can pick and choose. You can play the other 5 displays, just don't play much more than 10. 10 is, well, way beyond enough, I believe. Especially that you need some card draw here as well. So, as you can see, I'm also not running any market here. And you could think about just running 4 copies of Ixen Merchant instead of, I don't know, 2 Harbingers and 2 Dance of Ordeal, or 2 displays and some other things, and have a market with stuff like, I mean, even right now in this market I should be putting Draconic Ire, because, well, that's what I should have done, and I have not done it before. And in a fire deck that is running dragons, I mean, hit the enemy player with a dragon. So you're playing Black Sky Harbinger. If the opponent doesn't have face Aegis on them, you deal damage to them. So if you have 3 spare power, you can play Draconic Ire as well. Someone else suggested that you could be running some Eclipse Dragons in this deck, because Eclipse Dragon gives you 3 power at the start of the enemy player's turn. And you have 14 fast spells that cost 3 that you can play mid-game. So for example, it could be 1 Black Sky Harbinger, it could be and 1 Eclipse Dragon. You could just shave off some torches or some displays, like those displays of tradition I think are the weakest here. You could play with Market. Once again, still work in progress, but I'm going to show you 3 games that I played with this deck on Friday. On stream. Friday was May the 22nd of 2020, and well, you're just gonna see for yourself, is the deck working or not. It was not working in the beginning, but then later I got it to work, at least for a couple of cool games, so for me to show to you guys. Now. No, okay, now. Now this version was still running Seals of Devotion, and you can see on the right side of the screen that I was trying and failing, and well, this deck did not have a good starting record. I mean, I started this in Expedition, but it was not doing anything there. So I went to Throne, and well, it has done slightly better. And while the opponent is, well, I haven't changed the top right corner from Expedition to Throne, but this is Throne. And a starting hand of 4 Fire Sigils, Jekk, Carver, and Dragonforge was just perfect and amazing and exactly what I wanted to go for. And I'm going to start off with Grenadin Drone and a Grenadin's Drone and see what the opponent does here. They are playing some sort of Skycrag. And that's another Grenadin Drone, and we could just go full on aggro here unless the opponent has a Hailstorm. But I wanted to go with just attacking with those 2, and I should have attacked with them first and then played Carver, because the opponent could be running a Blazing Salvo, for example. And we got Nyctotraxion, that's going to get discarded, but we did get Weather the Storm, which could be cool. And well, that's where I ended things. And the opponent right now is going Nyctotraxion, like what? I mean, must have. Anyway, Volatility, sure. So they're grabbing 1 card. That's the low end of Volatility as far as I've seen it and played with it. Alright. Let's attack with the 1/1. Thank you, Caleb. Let's sacrifice that one. Get a Fire Sigil, that's cool. So just play that, and well, I could go for Dragonforge, or I could go for the unit, and I was thinking I'm gonna go for Dragonforge to grab Worldshaper Staff now. Blazing Salvo finally kills my unit, or does it? Nah, it doesn't. Alright, they're going for something. Well, those colors, I don't think they have any silence effects. They might have... Well, Royal Decree's a pain, but I believe they're gonna go for Jekk. And they did not have any Onslaught, so this is just going to be a copy of a card from my hand. I mean, who would go for Dragonforge here, right? So let me grab Worldshaper Staff. It only costs 2 now. And we have a Seal of Devotion on top. So remember, guys, do not click too fast. Research Assistant, grabbing Primal or Time, doesn't matter. Playing it over here. And we can also weather the storm a bit. Toad Pioneer, we do not care right now. Spark Hatcher. Okay, this seems like a Volatility Canadian deck, what the opponent is going for right now. And I went for attacking with a 3/3, obviously. Opponent is not blocking. I mean, this is still some damage before we get to sacrifice this unit, gaining 1 more power, gaining all the influence, 1 of each influence, going up to 6 power, drawing a card, and that's a Dragonforge. Golem dies, but we don't care, because we're playing Jekk. And, well, yeah, just silencing that Toda so the opponent doesn't have too much power. Then we're playing Fire Sigil, we're playing second Jekk the Bounty Hunter, silencing and stunning the other units, attacking for 6. And what's gonna happen next turn? That's right, guys, you guessed it. Jekk the Third is gonna come into play. So many Jekks indeed. Opponent is trying to draw some cards, but they are not drawing any blockers. So yeah, let's go for a Fire Sigil once again. Doing that, we have a Weather the Storm in case the opponent has something, but it turns out they don't, and triple Jack for the first win of the Jack day. Alright, let's get on to game number 2. Second game, the result has not been changed, but that is the following game. And just one power. No, this hand is full, but it's full of cards we cannot play. Once again, those seals are not really shouldn't even be here today, and they won't be by the third game. And let's see if a 6-card hand with just 4 fire sigils, 5 fire sigils now, Carver and Torch can deliver. Probably can't. Spoiler alert. Maybe it can. Opponent is on Wrath of Caiaphas, getting a power from their deck. Okay. I tried playing Wrath of Caiaphas in Expedition in Combray Relics and just didn't like it to the fullest and most extremes. And yes, this hand is very powerful and very fiery. So let's fire it up. Wisdom of the Elders. Main phase, sure. Okay. Dragon Forge. This is going to be good. Finally I'll be able to grab something. Wisdom of the Elders the second. Opponent is in the card drawing archetype. "23 turn clock, baby." Now it's going to be a 12 turn clock after I put Worldshaper staff on my Kindling Carver. And we're getting a 5/5 golem at that. I just hope my Carver doesn't get silenced. Justice has some silence effects. Heavy Graft, okay. So Carver dies. We are getting Denethor deals. Sure. Jekk the Bounty Hunter. Okay. And now we can play all the cards that we have. I mean, not now, but next turn. Wisdom of the Elders for the third time. Wrath of Caiaphas getting some power. Oh my goodness. And at this point I wanted to just get 3 cultists here to start attacking. And, well, playing Jekk doesn't make much sense, so I just went and played the side. Played the End is Near, so we are not getting... we are not playing the top 10 power cards from our deck. We're getting them to the void. And if I draw a power card in the next 4 or 5 cards, that just means I would have been so flooded in this game. Heavy Graft, number 2. Alright, so I won't be making any more cultists. And Hailstorm, I mean, they could have just killed it for all I know. I opted to go for Talon Dive first because I wanted to keep those Streets of Flame if the opponent, for example, played something. Here, it doesn't matter which second I'm getting, I'm playing Worldshaper Staff on it. Golem gets into play and dies. Edict of Korosh, okay. As I said, Justice does have silence. So we're not drawing a card there. Stormhold Knife, that's interesting. And the Display of Instinct, okay. Streets of Flame goes up. And the Grenadine Drone, I think we have more important cards here in the deck right now. And next turn we're getting Nakova and MacLeod. And we have a negate in hand to protect them as well. I also opted to go for just torching opponent's face, so that even if they get face Aegis, Nakova and MacLeod are gonna take care of the knife. Like so. Wisdom of the Elders for the 4th time. Sure, we're taking the damage. Opponent's playing a Rime Conclave Smuggler, getting face Aegis from that as well, and grabbing a spell from the market. Sorry, a card from the market, I mean. Well, that Aegis won't matter when the dragon comes. Reread. They're getting reread played on Edict of Korosh, but I thought to myself, okay, let them try to use 2 cards, and I will just negate the other one. I'm not going to be playing Jekk anyway anytime soon. And well, they're getting Edict of Korosh, I remember that, and you're going to see the interaction of timing. Sorry, the timing on Den of Ordeals, because you're playing Nakova and MacLeod first, and then you're getting the treasure trove for each of your differently named dragons. So that's what happens. We're getting that. We're getting a treasure trove. We're dealing 4 to everything. Opponent is on 16, and we have 16 in the air. I am playing the treasure trove. I just need to... Okay, we can put the staff on the dragon, but that's just... that would be hilarious. Opponent tries to play Edict of Korosh here. Sure, I don't mind. They also want to play something else here. I'm guessing, like a Harshul. Turn to Seed. I think I would have done it in the other order. But yes, I want to negate that. And if the opponent doesn't have anything, then... Oh, wait. Second Turn to Seed. Aww. That's a shame. But we are getting Nyctotraxion without the 7th power, unfortunately. We're not drawing, getting a treasure trove. We are getting rid of opponent's face Aegis, though. And, well, they drew a million cards in this game, but they are down to 3 right now, down to 2 even. Scourge of Frostholm. This is my most hated card in the whole game, I have to say. This is the one and only card in this game that I truly hate. Fortunately, Jekk, the bounty hunter, was able to get rid of that friggin' huge dino for me, and I thank him for it, and he's gonna have a place in this deck forever and ever and ever. And that's a huge endeavor. So yeah, that play really made my day. Sphetia's Sanctum, sure. Right now I am 1 off lethal. I can play Worldshaper Staff. I cannot play Obsidian Golem and kill it somehow. So I would have to draw a torch, for example. So let me try and draw a torch. Research Assistant, nope. So just playing Worldshaper Staff here. Just attacking with both for 11, leaving the opponent down to 1. If they play a Harshul, I'm gonna replay some Grenadines then. I mean, they could have a Harshul here, but I could top deck a torch still. I mean, I'm playing a fire deck. Okay, they have some blockers. I was thinking about drawing some cards here, and there is a Mist Lethal from the chat, which did not prove correct. Well, yeah, I did draw the torch. I mean, I could have just flooded the board, etc., but well, the torch just made it much faster. Okay, let's get on to game number 3 now. I did lose 1 game in the meantime, but fortunately I did swap out those Seals of Devotion for Fire Sigils. So there is that. And this hand does have Dragonforge, it has some power, so yes, I am going to go for it. Starting off on Research Assistant, doesn't matter if I'm getting Primal or Time. If I get one with Primal, one with Time, then I can play Display of Instinct, for example, and that is very cool. I am going to attack with this, and sure, I am playing Kindling Carver. I'm just gonna probably draw a card next turn. Nope, going for the full Monty. Volatility. This is Canadians once again, and they're getting nothing. But we are getting Worldshaper Staff and playing it over here. And this was actually a mistake. I should have sacrificed the Prism Golem before attacking, because opponents can just now block it. And that's what I'm showing on the screen right now. Yes, that's a lost card draw here. But in the end I played Research Assistant, went for second time now. And sacrificed it to try and draw into a power. Instead it was Nyctotraxion into Predator's Instinct, and we're discarding Nyctotraxion because it's too expensive and we cannot play it yet for 0 power. Combustion Cell from the opponent, sure. Right now I wanted to get some fodder for Kindling Carver. So that's why I created those 3 cultists. Sack one, try to draw a power. No, it was a torch, but we can use it, and I'd rather use it to kill the Grenadin. I mean, I wanted to kill the Grenadin anyway. Hailstorm hinders me for a moment, but we can draw some things. Another Combustion Cell, but no units. Okay. And I opted to silence the opponent's Void to draw a card, so their Hailstorm doesn't do anything. Now Jekk is going to discard probably Predator's Instinct to deal 2 damage to the opponent, but mostly to give me a treasure trove, so I can... So that card from Nyctotraxion turned out it's a treasure trove. So it was Zoe in disguise all along. Sure. Let's just kill it now. Attack the opponent, get another treasure trove for our troubles. Toad Pioneer is gonna die to Jekk. So this is once again Jekk Tribal, guys. Oh, brimming with power and treasure troves. And I need to draw into power, so that is why treasure trove into treasure trove. And I'm also thinking whether to play Carver or not. And, well, yeah, Grenadin Drone is slightly better. Sure, we can attack for 6. And let's play Treasure Trove, draw power, Treasure Trove, draw power that doesn't overflood us. 3, 6, 10, so I'm gonna play Carver and Carver. Sure, why not? Why the heck not? Even if they Hailstorm, we have a ton of cards in hand. And yeah, sure. They are getting End of Hostilities on Jekk. They are playing 2 Jacks. And they're killing 2 Carvers as well. But we can go silence and stun one. Kill the other. Attack for 4 or 5, depending how the opponent blocks. Okay, we got 2 more treasure troves. Right here, up to here with treasures. I mean, with the opponent here being on 1, there is a Dragon Forge for there's a Dragon Forge for BSH here anyway in the works, and well, this is going to be it. That is game 3. All 5 factions have been satisfied, so let's get back on top to the studio and talk about the deck some more. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Jekk's Unicorn Ride. Actually, it's a Worldshaper staff that turned the Unicorn into Nyctotraxion. And we are running, so this is a Monofire, Jekk Tribal, Nyctotraxion, Worldshaper staff, Display Tribal. Craziness. I mean, craziness. Can you get crazier than this? You probably can. And you'll probably see some more crazy decks in the future on future deck checks. But for now, I hope you enjoyed yourselves here. And remember, if you did, click on subscribe. I don't know. There's probably a lot of ways you can tune this deck. You just go through multi-faction cards usually, or even single faction. But if you go through high costing even single faction cards, well, maybe that are not fire. Let's say Justice. You don't see any single Justice cards here. Not really. And if they are, it's not really usually cards that you want to be playing in this deck. I mean, all the expensive ones are Quadruple Justice, Double Justice, etc., etc., Quadruple Justice, Triple Justice, and I don't even mean synergistic ones. So yeah, you can have all the fun you want with this. If you can improve on it somehow, please let me know in the comments below. But for now, this is going to be it for this Jekk check, and Calebovitsch out. See you next week.